Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Bold, Beautiful Borderline podcast. It's your host, Sarah, and it is September already, halfway through September. In fact, it's just completely bananas to me. I feel like summer flew by. I don't know that I'm quite ready for pumpkins and all that good stuff, pumpkin spice and whatever, but we're doing it. For any of you who struggle with like seasonal affective disorder, now's the time to kind of start putting those winter tools and interventions in place. I know for me, it's starting to get kind of darker and not as warm at the coast. So before we get into our episode, I just wanted to respond to a piece of fan mail that we got on Buzzsprout. Don't forget that you can send a message, leave a voicemail on the website. I am so excited. So the individual said, "Thank you so much for continuing to do this podcast. As the mom of a 43-year-old woman with BPD, it is very helpful in understanding her world and what to do to help her." First of all, it's so cool that your daughter is 43 years old and you are still learning. She is still learning about how to manage her BPD, have more successful relationships, and all of those things. I think it's a good reminder that no matter what our age is, we can always be continuing to kind of go along on this mental health journey. So that is such a cool response. And yeah, I'm always going to do some sort of work in this world. So I am stoked that it's still in podcasting. Thank you so much for your message. Okay, let's get into our episode. We have a friend today who is going to remain anonymous, which we love a good boundary and protecting folks on the podcast. He is going to talk to us about his experience with schizophrenia and BPD traits. So super excited to share this episode. I think it's going to be a unique perspective that perhaps we haven't had on the show yet. I am so interested to learn about that perspective. So I'm really grateful that you're here. But before we talk about that, like tell us a little bit about like where are you from? Like what was like childhood like for you? Just whatever you feel like sharing. I'm interested to know kind of like the development of your mental health and when you started seeing the signs and symptoms of both schizophrenia and BPD or whatever you want to share.
Yeah. So I'm from Canada, and um, I'm a substitute teacher. I've always had problems with anxiety in school. Like in grade one, I was always worried that I would get the police called on me for misbehaving at school, or I was worried that I can get in trouble at school for what I did at home. So I was very got a ton of anxiety. Like that kind of like high anxiety was very common, even from 7. And my dad was a psychologist. It was kind of funny because they, you would think that they would have like, a lot of insight and be very sensitive and compassionate, but it was so the opposite. Like they were just very cold and distant, and it added a lot of stress too, So I think that's like an interesting thing that kind of plays into my story.
Yeah, that is so interesting. How old are you?
My birthday was yesterday. I'm 31.
Oh my gosh, happy birthday.
Thanks.
Yeah. Did you do anything fun?
Yeah, I we just kind of hung out and got brunch, and yeah, it was nice.
I love that for you. So it is really interesting when I hear people say that they had a parent that was like a psychologist. And it seems like it's always like a psychologist, but I've also heard some children of therapists say that for whatever reason, there was this like disconnect between work and home. Like their parent was a really great provider or was able to be really empathetic to their clients, but that wasn't able to be translated kind of into the family home. Did you feel like a lot of rejection growing up?
Yeah, for sure. Like a good example is in grade 7, I missed a ton of school. So I was about 12. I was sick all the time. I was at the doctor's office. It seemed like every other week and on antibiotics, and nothing helped, and more antibiotics, and kept going back. And eventually, the doctor kind of confronted me and asked if I was doing drugs because he didn't know what was wrong with me, right? And then so they took my tonsils out, and I missed another month of school, and I almost had to repeat grade seven. And then finally, like at the very end of the school year, my dad said that, I think what you're dealing with is anxiety. And I said, what's anxiety? And he's like, it's stress. And I said, oh yeah, I think I'm stressed. That makes sense. And then we never talked about it again. So like there was no follow up or anything. I was just, continuing to be really anxious all the time and feeling sick. But, at least we knew what it was. But it kind of showed like we that mental health wasn't really discussed at home.
Yeah, that sounds like it was really lonely.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Are you an only child?
I have a younger brother.
Okay. All right. Obviously you like didn't have to repeat the seventh grade and like school was okay. Like did you have like friends growing up and or did the anxiety like really just impact everything?
It really impacted everything. People liked me because I really try to be nice. I don't like when people are mean, so I try to be really nice. So I get along with people. But school was tough. Like I struggled a lot academically. I like to learn, but I had a hard time with the structure of school. So my marks weren't that good. But I always enjoyed learning new things. It's just that it was always a struggle. Like with my teachers, like they thought I was really lazy, and they would phone my parents and say, oh, no work was getting done, and that would lead to conflict with my parents. So it was stressful.
Yeah. Honestly, it sounds like the quintessential borderline experience. Like school is so hard when you have BPD.
Yeah,
It's just that like always wanting to be good enough, never feeling like you are. Yeah.
yeah, totally. What I was about to say, and then like the schizophrenia part comes in right as I started university.
Yeah, because like it seems like that's the kind of average time for men is like the like late teens, early 20s would be when those symptoms kind of come on for the first time is my understanding. And like I can only imagine how terrifying it might be, but can you give us a little bit of insight into your experience with schizophrenia and the symptoms? And, we haven't ever had anyone on the podcast before who experiences this. So I think people are going to be really interested to hear your story.
Yeah, so it started when I was about 20 or 21. I just was not feeling well. Like I was exhausted and anxious all the time. And then one day I started hearing voices um, talking to me when I was by myself, and they were trying to get my attention. And it sounded kind of urgent, so it was kind of scary. And I kind of I knew that since like my parents weren't open to talking about mental health, I knew I would probably end up going to see someone as an adult when like my parents would never have to know. So I was kind of, thinking about going with help with my mood anyways, and then like I started hearing voices. So I was like, okay, I think it's time to go to the doctor. And then they referred me to um a um public health service for like youth. And I got the phone call like 2 weeks after my initial appointment, so it was really fast. And then before I knew it, I was seeing like a psych nurse and a psychiatrist, and we just talked about, how I was feeling, and I did like a early psychosis intervention like workbook, I remember. So I kind of learned a little bit about the symptoms of psychosis, and I really resonated with like a lot of it. So that was kind of the start of things.
Yeah. Were the voices scary?
At first they were really scary. Like now it's just kind of annoying because I kind of can usually I can recognize it's not real, but sometimes it does feel very real. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's those like kind of just auditory things. Have you ever experienced like any visual or like severe paranoia or anything like that that can be?
Yeah, absolutely. So like the paranoia is that centers around the police tracking me. Um, it at its worst, it was keeping me up at night. It was completely distracting me at work to the point where like, right, I was teaching online from home, but I was looking out the window during the day to make sure no cops were driving by to try to get me. Um, so that was pretty distressing, I would say. And I do see things once in a while. Not as much as hearing things though.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I've had clients that I've worked with over the years that have had some pretty significant paranoia, and just in observing the functional like limitations it's had in their lives, it's been like really heartbreaking. But also as a clinician, it's been like hard to kind of figure out how to provide helpful intervention. I wonder for you, what has been helpful from kind of the doctors and the people in your life who have kind of been a part of your care.
I think it's kind of like oversimplistic to say, or maybe it seem that way, but I think medication is like the thing that helps me the most because like counseling for me was really hard. Like it's like when you're in the midst of paranoia, like it's really hard to get talked out of it. You just believe it so like to your core. So
Oh
it's
yeah, you
hard.
can't talk anyone out of that, right? Because that's what's
Yeah,
real for you.
yeah, yeah. But once I got on the right medication, that went away, or maybe not away completely, but it just decreased a lot. So that was medication was really important.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's funny because like the way that I can relate to that is like I know that the person isn't leaving me, but that's how it feels. That kind of like fact versus, fiction, like fact checking stuff. Like that's the only way that I could possibly in a far removed um, instance kind of understand what it's like to have that severe paranoia. But I'm able to kind of like now with DBT skills and now with medication and all of these things can differentiate between someone leaving me and someone not leaving me. But is that even like a fair way to relate, or is that an offensive way to relate because it's so different?
No, I don't think I've had the same thing. I don't think it's that different at all. I deal with the same thing. With me, I kind of so one of my so it's kind of hard to tell if this is real for me or not, but I have this feeling that I could read people's minds. And so when I feel that my partner is mad at me or might leave me, I try to like connect with her on that level to see if she really is or not. And like when I was unmedicated, that process, I would get stuck in that loop for a long time, like hours a day, right? And now it's just like if it happens, it's just a quick little thing and then it's over. So I think it's still part of my life, but like that's kind of like what you said like resonated with me as well. Like I have the same thing about being like broken up with and stuff.
Yeah, totally. I can imagine like the BPD symptoms, and we're going to talk about that whole BPD traits or whatever bullshit they want to say, but like the BPD symptoms and the paranoia just fucking with each other hardcore because like my ADHD and my BPD are just constantly playing tennis with each other. And I'm just like, yo, can we take a break? And I wonder, like, does your is your paranoia impacted more by BPD symptoms around some of those things of like being left or potentially in danger?
Yeah, 100%. And like it, but like some of it was fueled by like a reality too. Like so when I was like 21, I started with the medication and stuff, and then about a year later, I stopped everything. Like I quit my meds cold turkey. I quit going to the clinic because I thought I was better, and I thought that was just like a little anomaly, and everything was fine. And when I was about 25, I got hired during COVID to teach online, like 2 days before the school year started. So I had to do like a month worth of planning in 2 days. So I was really stressed. And then the psychotic symptoms came back slowly. And eventually I kind of hit a breaking point and had to go back to the psychiatrist. And I had to let my partner know, who I'd been dating for a few months. We're married now, but it was very new, and I was terrified of her finding out and not liking it and leaving. I eventually told her that, this has happened before. I thought I was better, but now it's back. And then she was obviously worried about it, and she told one of her parents about it. And her parent really kind of pushed for her to say, like, this might be a good time to, a good opportunity to just like, leave now while you can, before things get really hard and messy. So, like, and I knew about that. She told me. So I was like, I know that like her parents don't want us to be together, and they're telling her to leave. So that like abandonment fear was like real.
Yeah. Well, and it's like leave this person for something that they can't control about themselves, something they didn't ask for.
Yeah, yeah,
There's such a feeling of being out of control there, and also like
yeah,
stigmatized and shamed.
yeah, totally, totally. Yeah. So, but
Mm.
it's better. It's a little better now. Like, because now I just think like, like if she did leave, like it would suck, but I think I would be okay. Like, I mean, I wouldn't be okay. I wouldn't, I would never date again probably because I'm afraid of it happening again. So, and I would just
Oh, I don't believe that for a second. It might take like a decade, but you would.
a decade. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, yeah, maybe.
I mean, I think like, the human capacity for love is always really interesting, but heartbreaks are terrible, especially when you have mental health issues that like exacerbate it so much.
Yeah, yeah.
Is her family supportive of you now?
No, but like they're very polite. Like they're not rude. But
Mhm.
when I was in the hospital, like my partner's parents were saying, "Oh, like she shouldn't have to deal with this. This is not fair to her. Like it's too much stress." And like I was obviously feeling terrible because that's how I felt too. So I really pushed to get out of the hospital as fast as I could, which was a disaster because things got way worse after I got out. I should have been there. They wanted to keep me there for like a month, and I should have stayed because I just completely fell apart when I got out. So, and then yeah, that added more stress. Yeah,
Mm. It's interesting how parents will say stuff like that, like, she doesn't deserve this or X, Y, and Z. And it's kind of like taking her autonomy away. Like, well, she's choosing to be with you. So she feels like this works for her. She feels like, I love this man. And yes, he struggles in this way, but I'm in this with him.
yeah, for
They're
sure.
completely overlooking that.
Yeah, and my partner does say like she wishes her parents could see how much joy we have together in our lives. Like, yeah, things are stressful sometimes, but we do have a lot of fun together too.
Absolutely. So tell me a bit about the where the BPD kicks in. My understanding is like you had a hospitalization and that resulted in you kind of learning about this concept of borderline in your life. Fill us in a bit.
Yeah, so I was in the hospital to get my meds adjusted because I was dealing with, and I still deal with this fatigue that just is just crushing. Like I'm on like 100 milligrams of this Foquest, which is like a stimulant, and I drink. Today I had two Cokes, a Pepsi, a cup of coffee, and an energy drink, and I could keep my eyes open by like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So, and that's like every day. So I was dealing with all that. So they're like, okay, let's put you in the hospital to get your meds adjusted. So but I panicked, wanted to leave, so I left and I saw this psychologist in the mental health clinic, and she asked me a bunch of questions about um my relationships and how I feel when I interact with people and stuff, and we just kept talking and talking, and we had a few sessions, and then she explained to me that she probably would diagnose me with BPD, but she had some reservations about putting it in my file. But basically, it was the fact that I didn't want my partner to know about my psychosis because I was afraid she would leave me. I was afraid of the police after me, right? And because they couldn't tell if that was all psychosis or a little bit of stuff about abandonment. Because my biggest fear is stressing out my partner so that she'll be mad at me. And so, like, if something did happen with the police, my partner would be really upset and she'd be really mad. So a lot of my stress right now revolves around my partner being mad at me. Yeah.
Which is like such a hard thing to live with.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Because people get mad sometimes, and like sometimes people just have a bad day, but like to me, it always feels like it's my fault, and that you know, it's going to be the last straw for her, and that'll be it.
Oh my God, I totally understand this. Like even the smallest things. So, um, this is such a funny example, but it's like so real. My um my husband, when he was younger, if he like spilled anything, that caused like a lot of distress for his mom. And so anytime anything is spilled, like if I knock over a Diet Coke or something, he has like a almost a trauma response, right? Well, that instantly makes me think, oh my God, it's all my fault. I spilled it. He's upset because of me. He's angry at me. He doesn't want me, around him. He doesn't trust me. He doesn't want to be with me. Like instantly about a fucking Diet Coke being spilled.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I feel that so strong. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like your body is calm 1 minute, and then in 27 seconds, it's like, I hate myself and I want to die.
Yeah, exactly. And then for me, the psychologist pointed out that I do a lot of, she called it reassurance seeking. So when I think my partner's mad, I'll be like, "How you feeling? And like, how's your day going?" And I'll try to assess like her mood, if she's just really snippy or if she's short or if she's in a good mood. And if I think she's in a bad mood and mad at me, I'll say, "Okay, I love you. I love you." And she'll be like, "I love you too." And I'm like, "Oh, that wasn't sincere enough. Like she's mad at me."
hmm Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I just straight up am like, are you upset with me? Did I do something wrong? Like that's one of those symptoms that I have not been able to break myself of anymore. Like there's a lot of parts about borderline that are like easier for me to like ignore or navigate now, but that constantly feeling like it's my fault, that I haven't been able to stop. I probably ask my husband like 50 times a day, are you okay? Did I do
Yeah.
something wrong? What's wrong?
Yeah. Same. Yeah.
So you were in the hospital for your med stuff, and then you asked for your file, and it sounds like BPD was written in there. Tell me, like, what was your gut reaction? How do you feel, like, about the concept of having BPD? Do you feel like it fits?
Well, like based off what I know, I think it does fit. Like obviously, so like when I told my partner about this, she really didn't think it fit because she was saying, people with BPD have a lot of like violence and they're very explosive and they have very unstable, and like I'm very much not that. Like when I freak out, it's very internal. Um, but the fear of like the insecurity about is my partner mad at me? Is she gonna leave? And like the measures I take to, check and reassure, I think based on what I know, I think it kind of does fit. Now, obviously, I'm not an expert and like I've never had this like really thoroughly like a deep dive, and like I haven't had it explained to me really well. But based off of my notes from the hospital, like the doctors and nurses did say that um the psychosis was being made worse by my fear of my partner, like her reaction to it, right? So I would like hide things from her. I would tell my partner like certain things. I would tell like the psychologist certain other things, and I would tell the psychiatrist certain like different things, so that I can manage everyone's response and make sure everyone's happy with me. So yeah, like it definitely like that it plays with the schizophrenia very, very closely.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I don't know that a doctor would ever write in your file BPD traits if they didn't think you had BPD.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I mean, that's just my thought. Like, it wouldn't be very ethical of me to like go through the DSM-5 criteria with you or anything like that because I'm a therapist, but I will say that it seems like from everybody I've spoken with who are my clinical peers, I'm not afraid to diagnose anyone with BPD, but all of my peers are that I've spoken to or are really hesitant because of a lot of different reasons. So if someone's putting it in your chart that they think you have BPD traits, I think it's a pretty fair assessment probably to say you have BPD traits and or
Yeah,
could meet the criteria.
right. Yeah.
When you've listened to the podcast, it sounds like you relate to some of this stuff, yeah?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I for me I think for me what I relate to, like a theme that comes up a lot, is this stress about like managing relationships. Like kind of when someone, they're like, say they have conflict at work and that stresses them out and they're deregulated, and then they come home stressed out, and then they have conflict at home because they're not in their like wise mind. They're escalated, and like so things spiral out of control there, and like things kind of, feed off each other. Like so definitely like for me, like what I'm very much like, some people can really compartmentalize like their day, and like, okay, this is work and this is home and this is my, volunteering, and they're all separate, and I can like, function independently in each category. But for me, like if I have a bad day at work, or if I'm stressed out, if my partner's mad at me in the morning, I'm stressed all day at work. And then I'm exhausted when I get home, and like I'm checking to see if she's still mad. So yeah, I cannot compartmentalize at all.
Yeah, totally. Do you feel like have some of the like mood cycling of borderline, or do you feel like the medication that you're on pretty much keeps that at bay?
That is a good question. It's hard to tell. So like what do you mean by mood cycling?
So I am probably a more severe case of mood cycling because I am on like 900 milligrams of a mood stabilizer every day, and I still will have, you know, like um Wednesday last week, probably like five or six crying episodes, followed by like everything's okay, I'm good, followed by I hate the fucking world, I hate my husband, I wish I, never bought this house. I hate my dogs. Why do I even have dogs? I'm a terrible dog mom too. And then by six or seven, I'm finally like so exhausted by the cycling from 11 a.m. till then. I'm just sitting on the stairs, hysterical. And that is not abnormal for me. And I'm on all of the medications. So when I was younger, it was not any more frequent, but it was like more extreme. So when I was like angry, I would throw my phone or tear all of my ex-wife's clothes out of the closet and throw them down the stairs, and I would scream and I would have a lot more suicidal thoughts and statements and those kinds of things than I do now. But just rapid feelings, I guess, happening through me.
Okay, yeah, I don't think I experienced that. I have experienced a lot of depression and um and hypomania, but they were separate, and like they it didn't change like multiple times a day. It was like many months of depression, a few weeks of hypomania, and back to depression.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting for you to kind of talk more to like a psychologist, psychiatrist, and ask them like, what do you think? Like, I have this schizophrenia diagnosis. I know in my file it says BPD traits. Like, do you think I have borderline?
Yeah.
Have you had that conversation with anyone?
Okay, I want to, but I'm afraid because my partner doesn't agree with it. So, and now she's kind of insisting on coming to my psychiatry appointment so that I can't compartmentalize anymore. So if I break something up to my psychiatrist, I have to be okay with my partner knowing about it. Like I don't feel like she totally understands, everything that I am feeling. Kind of just is what it is.
Well,
Like
it doesn't have to be what it is. You have the right to establish your boundaries.
and it's so funny you say that because just this afternoon I was thinking about this. Like I was thinking, there have been times recently where I, so in where I live, we have this public health line where you can phone and you can get like a free consultation with a nurse, and they can tell you like if you should go to the hospital, if you should, do self-care at home or whatever. And so I talked to this nurse about what I was feeling with like the fatigue and depression and my psychiatrist calls it cognitive issues, like with paying attention and organizing my thoughts. And she was saying I should go either to the hospital or to urgent care and do the mental health section. And like I was thinking, yes, I think that would be helpful, but it would stress out my partner, so I didn't do it. And like there have been times where like man, like I should really go. Like because I really working is really hard. I'm worried I'm not gonna be able to function this school year at work. And so like really it kind of makes sense to me to go to the hospital just to get it fixed or to get my meds adjusted or to get a tune up and then
Yes.
come back. But it would stress out my partner, I know. And then obviously like her parents wouldn't like it because it's put stress on her. So like it's very complicated. But like I would like to get more like help. Yeah.
I don't want to brain hack. It's not my job. But I will say that I think that that dynamic is not helpful to you, and it sounds like you also know that.
Yeah, it's just so hard because like I don't know how to bring it up and like stay calm.
Yeah, it's really hard to confront those kinds of things. Like the staying calm part, it's like, well, you're probably not going to stay calm, but can you stay safe?
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
really want you to know that it's a basic human right for you to make decisions about your mental health without your partner being in the know until you feel like that's truly what you want with, you know, every part of you.
Okay, well, that's good to hear because like that's kind of what I'm wrestling with recently. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I would be super interested to know someday like if you speak with a another provider and really like look into it what they meant by BPD traits and does someone think you have BPD and you know what I will say is regardless of if you have BPD or don't have BPD, you obviously have this like strong feeling of rejection sensitivity that so many of us feel. And DBT skills or things like that could be helpful for that. I wonder like what kind of things have you done to try to like work at some of the rejection stuff?
it's been really hard. Like I it's that's something that I don't have a good control of right now. Because it's like even when I go, like I'm a substitute teacher, right? So when I go into a school, there are days when I think, oh, the principal is really not happy with me. I'm gonna get fired. And then my partner's gonna be really stressed, and I don't have a good handle on it right now, I would say.
Yeah, totally fair. I think so many of us have been there. So many people listening or are there or have been there where they're like, I feel like one rejection will ruin my life.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Yeah, DBT could be super helpful for some of that rejection stuff. Obviously, like schizophrenia is a brain disorder, so medication is the most appropriate and like also learning kind of like what are my patterns and how do I tell the signs and stuff. But man, BPD will just like knock you out of nowhere.
Okay, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, yeah, DBT is cool. So, what kind of things do you like to do for fun? I feel like I could talk to you about your life forever, and we haven't even like talked about your life.
Yeah, like when I feel up to it, I like to lift weights. I used to run, but I have a sore back now. I feel like so old, but I'm only 31, but my back is really sore. So running is hard, but lifting weights I can do. I used to play football and hockey a lot, so I'm used to being athletic, like moving around. And then I like to play a little video games, like a little bit. I love listening to audiobooks. I'm a very much an introverted person. Like I have headphones that like are on my head almost all day unless I'm talking to my partner. Like if we're not talking or like watching a show, my headphones are on. Even in the bathtub, like we're doing dishes, like doing everything. I'm listening to a podcast like your podcast or like an audiobook or something like that. So I'm very much I live in my head, I would say.
Yeah, I feel like that's why athletics, at least for me, also has been really helpful in my life. Like I used to just love to go for a run before I also have pain or like a long bike ride and just like zone out of all of the stuff in my head. In fact, earlier today during my like midday break, my husband and I went out kayaking and because there's a tiny little like lake 10 minutes from my house. So the sun was shining and I was like, kayaking and I could feel my arms burning because we were going against the wind. And I just had this moment where I was like, oh my God, my brain is quiet.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
I mean, obviously, I feel like I've sought out that feeling in my life forever. Like I'm an addict, alcoholic. So like, of course, but sometimes like moving my body is the only way I can find that.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I've never had addiction, but I get that same feeling from exercise.
So with substitute teaching, do you teach like certain grades? Or are you just down to do everything or?
Well, technically I should be down for everything because, it's a day of work and it's money and stuff, but I prefer grades 5 to 12. Like the little ones are so much work. They take so much energy from me.
Yeah.
So I prefer like the older ones.
Yeah. I feel like substitute teaching is actually like a really good option for people with mental health, possibly. Is that true or is it worse?
Yeah, and if you don't feel good that day, you don't pick up a shift and you know, that's okay.
Yeah, I feel like that would be the case. But are kids really mean to you? Because when I was in school, I feel like we were such shits to our substitute teachers.
They can be for sure. Some of them are nice. It depends on the school. And like you get to know like, okay, like this classroom in this school is not nice. I don't want to go back, or like this school is awesome. I'm happy to go back, if they have an opening. So you get to learn like like the energy and like the kind of the feeling of every classroom.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I feel
Yeah.
like when I was young too, like we would have the same substitutes for certain teachers, and I wonder if
Yeah.
it's because of that, like they were just a good teacher to sub for.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yeah. And the teacher matters too. Like some teachers are really organized and prepared and some are not. And like the ones aren't, it's very chaotic throughout the whole day. So
Yeah, which also mental health wise, like for me, that would be very triggering.
yeah, like I've learned to like improvise and like, if we don't get like to all their like activities, it's okay as long as, no one ends up, with an injury or in the office or, because sometimes some days you just have to manage and get through
Yeah, you're just like, okay, if you guys are alive at the end of this, that's cool.
it. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I love it. Yeah, I would be the same. Like, all right, well, if I'm alive at the end of this, that's cool too.
Yeah.
Well, what is one piece of information? I know you were excited to share a new perspective. What's the one thing you would want people to take away from our conversation about kind of the way that your schizophrenia and maybe these like BPD traits or whatever you want to call it, like they interact?
Yeah, like I would say, like to make it helpful, I would say, like people have different opinions about like labels and how helpful it is to get an official diagnosis or not. Like for me, I would say, you know, for the BPD and the schizophrenia, like they interact a lot, they overlap a lot, but they're also a bit separate. Like there's no medication treatment like specifically for BPD as far as I know. Like you can get on medications for like your mood and stuff, and but like the actual BPD part, like, there's no like antibiotic for like BPD, right? So, but for schizophrenia, there are antipsychotics, right? So sometimes you do have to tease out, okay, this is schizophrenia, this is BPD, this is I do DBT maybe for BPD, and I do like medication and other stuff for schizophrenia. So I would say it's worthwhile to like, and I should do this too, like get a more thorough explanation about like the BPD and how it is different and how it's the same from what I've experienced with the psychosis, because I think it does impact like the treatment and like how like I see myself, like and how I can explain it maybe to others if I ever get that brave. Like sometimes I have really intense paranoia, and that can be part of the BPD or schizophrenia, right? So I would say it's worthwhile to get a good comprehensive picture of like everything that's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Data is power. I mean, and I like that you connected that back to like the treatment plan, like the way that we treat different things is different. And I mean, at the end of the day, if someone puts a label on your file or not, like whatever, but like we know that if there's this kind of like general behavior pattern, then maybe this thing will be helpful and vice versa. So I think like that final statement, have a comprehensive assessment is so important. Before we go, I forgot to ask you if you're willing, what meds are you taking?
Oh yeah. So I'm on a injection once a month for my antipsychotic. It's in Vega.
Hmm?
And then I have bupropion, Prozac, that Focwest for my energy, and quetiapine or like Seroquel, whatever. But I take that at night.
Got it. For sleep.
It was for I had a flare up of like a psychotic situation about a month ago, so they kind of added that as a little extra thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How do you feel about being on an injection?
Well, I was really like, like I, you know, about 5 years ago, I guess I did not want to take medication. So like, I just wouldn't take my medication. So and the psychiatrist was very adamant that I be on medication. So I've a community treatment order, which means if I don't show up for my injection, like the police can come get me. So like in that sense, like I don't like it, but also I like it because I don't have to take a pill every day for that. It's just kind of once a month and it's over. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think in that regard, like just being able to have the injection and then not have to worry about taking the pill every day, like there's a safety in that.
yeah, yeah.
But the other piece of like is like opting into it, like the consent piece, and it sounds like that's a little tricky for you.
Yeah, it's definitely it wasn't like an enthusiastic consent. It was more like, this is what's happening, and
Well, especially with your paranoia and like the fear that the police will show up, that's
hun-
the worst ever.
yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, yeah. I was like 25 and I just started like going back to the psychiatrist, and he's very the psychiatrist is very assertive, like demanding, pushy. I don't know, but he gets his way when he wants to. So he wanted me on the injection, and then the next I knew I was doing it. So
Interesting. I feel like I would love to know more about that, but I'm taking my therapist hat off because I am not your therapist.
okay.
This has been such a cool conversation. I'm really excited for people to hear it. And I would love to have you come back and share with us some more how you feel about this BPD traits, BPD diagnosis stuff, maybe as you continue to look into it.
Yeah, totally. I would love that too.
Hello, listeners. Thank you for tuning in to the Bold, Beautiful Borderline podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your content. That's super helpful for me in finding additional folks who want to listen to the show, want to feel seen, family members, partners who want to understand. You can also follow along at Bold Beautiful Borderline or at Sarah's Wellness Way on Instagram. For the blog and a more extensive list of resources, go to boldbeautifulborderline.com. There you can also request to be a guest on the show, or you can do my favorite thing and leave a voicemail to be played at one of our future episodes. All of this information can be seen below in the show notes. If you'd like to support the show and get exclusive perks, consider becoming a Patreon member. Your support helps me with creating content to destigmatize BPD and all the other wild mental health struggles that I discuss on this podcast. As always, thank you so much for guests and listeners alike. I love you. Until next time, keep living and seeking joy. Information in this podcast is not medical advice, but rather experience from individuals living with mental illnesses. If you want to try a treatment that you heard about, please consult your treatment team. The music in this podcast was created by a longtime friend of mine, Corey Evans from the Evergreen Band. You can find him on Instagram at @the_Evergreen Band. Cover art was created by my husband, Talon Abbott. Their information is in the show notes. There is no producer for this show. It's all me.